It started with the Salem witch trials. Innocent people, mostly women, prosecuted by the state. All of them were innocent. And the people, we were silent. And then came Sacco and Vanzetti, two immigrants, two radicals, outsiders, targeted, tried, and executed. By this time, the people spoke. We protested, and they marched. They remembered. You may not hear their names in school books anymore, but back in the 1920s, Sacco and Vanzetti were everywhere. Their trial wasn't just big, it was a global shockwave. It exposed a legal system rigged against immigrants, radicals, and anyone who dared to question the narrative. Let's go back. Post-World War I America was tense. Fear and patriotism were mixing like gasoline and fire. Nicola Sacco and Bartolo Vanzetti, two Italian immigrants, just a few years apart in age, both working-class men, trying to survive in a country that already had them labeled anarchists. And in the 1920s, an anarchist was basically code for enemy of the state. A divided house cannot stand. The government was cracking down on radical groups, especially poor immigrants who spoke out, organized, or protested. People were still shaken by a wave of bombings linked to far-left groups, and the media was still stoking fear like it was a sport. In that climate, anyone with an accent and a political opinion was already half convicted. On April 15, 1920, in Braintree, a paymaster and his guard were ambushed and killed during a robbery. The suspects vanished in a car with several men inside. Bridgewater Police Chief Michael Stewart thinks it's tied to a previous robbery at a shoe factory, one that shockingly involved an Italian anarchist. So he set the trap. The men who fell into that trap were not the suspects he was after. Instead, Sacco and Vanzetti, who were armed and in grave contradictory answers during questioning, were arrested and charged. The vibe? Guilt by association. Vanzetti had no alibi. Sacco had an alibi for one robbery, but just so happened to be off work the day of the other murders. Coincidence? Perhaps. But back then, that was enough for an indictment. The trial was a circus. The evidence? Mostly circumstantial. The forensics? 1921. There was barely a thing. One bullet might have come from Sacco's gun, but the witness said they only saw one shooter fire all 4 shots. Vanzetti's gun wasn't linked to anything, but he didn't know much about it, so they spun that into a story too. And the judge, Webster Thayer, was openly biased. He denied every request for a retrial. Even after one man confessed to the murder, he was involved in a gang who had just done a similar murder the week before. Even after new forensic techniques emerged, he still denied them a new trial. Even after the Supreme Court appeals. Meanwhile, the country was erupting. People could see what was happening. This was the Roaring '20s. This wasn't about justice. This was about politics, prejudice, and power. And then it got worse. 2 days after their indictment, a bomb exploded on Wall Street. Dozens were killed and hundreds were injured. Was it connected to Sacco and Vanzetti's trial? Some people believed it was retaliation, but instead of sympathy, it made things much worse for them. Now the narrative was, see, these radicals are dangerous. Despite all the protests and all the petitions, all the pleas from writers, artists, and activists around the world, the state didn't flinch. On August 23rd of 1927, Sacco and Vanzetti were executed by electric chair. Vanzetti shook hands with the guards. Sacco didn't resist. Their funeral drew hundreds of thousands of people, and just like that, they became the symbol of a broken system. They never got a fair trial. Everyone knew each other. Just like the witches, they were tried for their beliefs, their nationality, their identity, and for being an outsider, not for the evidence. Their story ripped the mask off the American justice system, showing the world how fear can override facts. and how prejudice can write the verdict before the trial even begins. And that brings us to today. With the Karen Reed trial, we have one timeline and two trials. The first round, we had the same verdict. Was it programmed? We had two immigrants, two men accused, and a system already convicted them of their guilt. Sacco and Vanzetti were not just names in a history book. They were the face of every outsider America feared. The case was never just about a robbery. It was about beliefs, about money, power, fear, and control. And it was about silencing those who refused to play along. From Boston to Brooklyn, from whispers to outrage, it wasn't just a trial. It was a signal. It was a ritual, a soul contract playing out in front of everyone's eyes. And we were here to do it again. Different century, same story. What Sacco and Vanzetti endured, a program verdict sealed in fear and wrapped in patriotism, echoed today in the Karen Reed trial. Because all the same players have returned, not as punishment, but as prophecy. We must close this karmic loop. Yannetti and Vanzetti, one soul echoing across timelines, still trying to free the innocent. The system didn't just fail, it followed a script, and they all have a part. This time, the script broke. This time, the soul contracts are being rewritten, in public, with cameras, with fire. And in the end, justice isn't just found in a courtroom. It's found in the echo, in the outrage, and in the ones who remember. Because Sacco and Vanzetti didn't die in vain. They made the cracks visible. And now we have Karen Reed, another scapegoat, another scripted takedown. Everyone had their place. Everyone had their line. But this time, the people didn't just speak up. They shouted, they channeled, they prayed, they showed up. And this time, she was vindicated. Because it's our turn now. As a collective soul family, bound by centuries-old karmic debt, we activated our own divine missions. And we answered the call by being brave. We had Turtle Boy in the Canton 8. We had Karen Reed, who stood inside the machine and refused to stay silent. This was the moment, not just the fight back, but the break in the cycle, to unbind the loop and to finally set our souls free. What began as a persecution became a prophecy. And we, as a soul family, the witnesses, the truth tellers, the time walkers, we were the ones who chose to answer it because we were the bravest and we answered this call.